Now, stop what you're doing, because my next guest is a superstar. He's a young man from Treorchy, but you may know him as a star of TV, stage, screen, and everything in between. He's currently starring in A View from the Bridge at the Theatre Royal Haymarket. It's Callum Scott Howells. How are you, Cal?
I'm so good. Thank you for having me, Steph. It's so lovely to be here in Cardiff, home for one day only whilst I'm in the trenches in London's West End.
Hey, I will grab you when I can. I have to start by saying you have one of my favourite accents ever.
This Valley's accent.
Do you get that a lot from people?
You know what? Like, it's so nice. It's kind of, it comes in like into when I'm in London. Like, obviously people are like, some people are like, God, I love your accent, and some people are like, where is that accent from? Because obviously in London you get all sorts of people there, and they're like, where is your accent? They're like, are you Irish? I'm like, no, I'm Welsh. I'm from the valleys.
Hey.
I'm from the Rhondda.
Is it a relief when you book an acting job and they tell you, do you know what, Callum, you can keep your accent for this one?
It's a beautiful thing, because it's like half of the job is like already done for me. But speaking of, on The View from the Bridge, I'm doing this very thick Italian accent because my character's from Sicily, which is nice. It's nice, but it's like doing, when I did Cabaret, like that was like German. So it's fun, but it is lovely doing a Welsh accent, because it means I get to kind of focus on the acting as opposed to like worrying about this, I don't know, doing some sort of, I don't know, American Brooklyn accent or whatever.
Now, for anyone listening, if you think Callum Scott Howells is an overnight sensation, you are wrong, because he has been working for years, let me tell you. So, Callum, take me back now to 16-year-old you, making your professional debut, right, at the Menia Chocolate Factory in a show called She Loves Me. What was that experience like?
It was such a dream, and I think this is, it's so lovely coming on this show and talking to you about it, because like She Loves Me, I was such a musical theatre fan at that age, and that was when I was like I was like obsessed with musicals. Obviously I still am, but then I was like, staying up to like 2 a.m. watching bootlegs on YouTube of
Same
like
here.
Carrie the musical or something, and She Loves Me was I just watched videos of the roundabout version with like Jane Krakowski and just this amazing cast out on Broadway. And then I literally a week later got this call about doing this show at the Chocolate Factory, and it was because I did this youth production with the MYMT in London. And I mean, this goes to show that, like, when you're young and just literally bite anyone's hand off to do anything, because you just never know what path it can lead you down. But anyway, I went and auditioned for it, and I got it, and I was with like Les Dennis, and for 16-year-old me, that was huge, and for my family, they were loving it. And anyway, that aside, I loved the show, and the score of that musical is lovely. You have like Vanilla Ice Cream, and I sang a lovely song called Try Me, and it's just beautiful. And I was there over Christmas in London at 16, but it was a massive learning curve, because I was there on my own, sort of having to sort of deal with living in London, and it was great. Yeah,
slightly different to growing up in the valleys, I imagine.
Just a little bit, just a bit.
Just slightly different. And going back even further than that, then, and speaking of Treorchy, you grew up in the Amdram scene, the amazing Amdram scene. So how valuable were those early experiences for you?
I mean, so valuable, I can't even explain. Like, I always say that, like, my training kind of started then. The reason I love acting on stage now and theatre is because of what I discovered at that age, like performing on my local stages. Like, there's nothing that being able to sort of find that relationship with an audience can begin anywhere. And for me, it started at the Park and Dare in Treorchy, and I loved it. And for anyone who came to see me in shows, I hope that they got to see how much I loved it, because for me, it was how I found my tribe. I know that's such a cliche thing to say, but it really is. Like, it was like something. It was like, I'm addicted. I just got so addicted to it, and I discovered something that would then change my life forever.
You moved on to study at the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama, a college that we're so lucky...
Didn't go far. just down the road,
just
20
down the
minutes
road.
down the road.
A college we're so lucky to have here in Wales. So what impact did studying there have on you as an actor?
Oh, God, it was... I mean, this is the thing. So, like, I'd gone from doing it for fun and, loving it and sort of just having a blast with my friends and stuff. And then, it was then, after I did She Loves Me, I was like, look, I want to do this for a long time. So how do I do that? And David Babani, actually, who's the artistic director of the Menu, was like, go and train, because Jessie Buckley went and did a show at the Menu, and his words to her was, go and train. And she went to RADA, and for me, I went to Royal Welsh, and I studied acting. And for me, it went from being something I just do and have fun with, and I have a blast, but then changing it to it being a discipline, and it being something that actually you've got to really kind of hone in on and focus and find the detail and nuance, and I learned so much. It was like, for me, before Royal Welsh, I felt like I was just like making shapes, really, but then they taught me how to really kind of make it a proper skill and kind of find what exactly it is that I can hook onto for the rest of my life. And it was the teachers there, and like you said, we're so lucky to have it in Cardiff. And any young aspiring actors who are Welsh or even not Welsh, if you're from anywhere in the UK or beyond, like it's definitely up there with one of the best schools, I'd say, in the world.
And now, can we talk about Cardiff City?
Absolutely.
You're a big Cardiff City fan.
Huge Cardiff City fan.
Huge. So first things first, as someone who knows nothing about football here, Callum,
okay,
how are Cardiff City doing? Tell me.
We're doing all right. Like I mean, look, last season we finished mid-table, so I think we finished 12th. But I think, we've just secured the manager now. We've given him a 2-year contract extension, and I think he's brilliant, and I really believe in what he does for the club. And he goes out and sees fans in the valleys from where I'm from. So for me, that's really important. And the football, I think, is brilliant. So and he really believes in sort of bringing in the youth as well. So he's a great manager. He's great for the football club, and hopefully next year now we can push on and maybe achieve something quite brilliant with him.
Well, there's method to my madness here. Why am I asking you about football? Because you recently got to shoot your first film ever, which was called The Beautiful Game. It's on Netflix, so it's a football theme, of course. So tell me all about it.
Yes, God, I mean, I'm such a big football fan, and also I'm an actor. I try to be anyway, and I basically, this was like sort of in the middle of COVID. I got this self-tape through to audition for this film about the Homeless World Cup. And I thought it was to do with Michael Sheen, because obviously Michael did the tournament in Cardiff, and it wasn't. It was actually about the tournament that had been going for 20 years before Michael Sheen was even involved. And it's the story of the tournament. And for anyone who doesn't know what the Homeless World Cup is, it's this amazing charity and tournament that happens every year, and it changes millions of people's lives around the world. And I got to do the film of it, and I got to play this lovely character called Nathan, who's a recovering heroin addict. And I sort of fell in love with him, really. I love playing these sort of tricky characters, because you get to kind of really there's something quite sort of cathartic about it, and really it's harrowing and hard, but I love it because I get to learn so much about the world and about all these different types of people.
You got to film abroad quite a bit for that.
We were in Rome.
Oh, as you do.
In Rome. And it's so funny because we were there in the height of COVID, and we'd have COVID shutdowns, because if someone got COVID, you have to stop filming, and it meant we'd have to stay there longer, and we were all like, oh no, we have to stay in Rome, in this lovely city.
I guess we'll stay an extra couple of weeks.
Yes, literally. So it was really fun, and I was very lucky to do that. It was my first time filming in abroad, and long may it continue. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, The Beautiful Game on Netflix. Check that one out. Now, I'm here talking all things musical theatre on Radio Wales, Callum.
Of course.
So we have to talk about the musical Cabaret. At the Kit Kat Club, you played the MC. And this particular production is kind of been the talk of the town for a couple of years now. So what is it about this production, do you think, that's caught so many people's attention?
God, there's something so amazing about that building and everything that they've created in it. I came in as the third cast after Eddie Redmayne, and I went into this building just sort of wanting to sort of explore every crevice of it, and thankfully I did. But it's all because of the thing that they've created. There's something so special about that show. It's immersive. The moment you walk into the Kit Kat Club, and it's something really unique and incredibly kind of visceral. So God, I loved being in that show, and playing the MC. I just wanted to make it kind of dangerous and sexy, and sort of make everyone kind of go through this whirlwind, and then we can spit them back out again on the other side of it, and sort of then, I think for me, Cabaret is everything that theatre is meant to do. It transports you for the sort of 2.5 hours that you're in the theatre, and you're in another world. And it's, God, I'm so lucky to have done that show.
You mentioned that you were the third MC, the third actor to step into those shoes. So when some actors have been there before you, do you try and not ignore, but maybe not think about the way they played that role, and do you try and put Callum's stamp on the MC?
Exactly. You know what I think everyone was asking me when I got it, they were like, "Oh my God, like what are you gonna do with it? What are you gonna do with it?" And it's always like, I think for me, like I was lucky enough to see Eddie, and I saw Fra as well. They were both amazing. I wanted to go in and I just wanted to kind of rip it up, and I wanted to make. I had, I was lucky enough to chat to some people who knew the show really well and like what they liked about it, and that really kind of helped me and it really informed what I wanted to do with the MC, because he's the most complicated character in musical theatre, because there's no kind of blueprint. You kind of go in and he has this handful of songs, very little dialogue, and you've got to really just create this person, this being. And for me, I had to just kind of start from scratch with how Callum responded to it, and I loved it. Look, I mean, there's clips of my kind of interpretation in the Royal Variety and on Graham Norton, and I guess that's a little kind of like taste of what I did. But yeah, I loved it, and I'm very, very proud, and I think Eddie's doing it on Broadway now, and yeah, it's a special show and a very special role.
Well, Callum, stay where you are. I'm going to take you back to the good old Cabaret days now. Enjoy. Here's Jessie Buckley performing Maybe This Time. Wales. Callum, isn't that such a beautiful song?
Oh, it's astonishing. Like, it's one of those songs like that will never get old. It's timeless. And I was so lucky enough. I did the show with Madeline Brewer, who's famously in A Handmaid's Tale, and I would always be like sort of getting changed. I think I was getting into like this skeleton costume, getting ready to do Money, every night whilst listening to that, and every night I'd tune in to how beautiful she sung it, and Jessie sings it sort of flawlessly. She's honestly like one of the most exciting actors of our time. Like I love her, and I watch everything she does. She's honestly one of the most incredible actors.
Can we expect more musical theatre roles for you in the future, Callum? God, I'm digging here.
Yeah, for me, my next step, I'd love to do an original thing, to do something new, and because I've done a revival now, and for me, it's looking at what that thing is, and there's things happening in the background, like ideas I have and things that I'm sort of helping, develop, and they're really exciting times. So yeah, hopefully one day, fingers crossed, it'll happen again.
Now, most of my friends would never speak to me again, Callum, if I didn't ask you about It's a Sin. Oh, what a series. And your character, Colin, in particular, just stole people's hearts. So firstly, for anyone who was living under a rock, remind us what It's a Sin was all about.
Oh God, it's so lovely to talk about it, because I mean, yeah, it was the thing that kind of was my first. It was my first ever job. It was the most beautiful show, and it's about 5 friends who are living in the 80s, growing up in the 80s, and a massive sort of pandemic hits, a global pandemic hits, and it's the AIDS pandemic, and essentially it strikes the very heart of this friendship group. And I play Colin, who is this young boy who moves to London from the Welsh valleys, and yeah, I don't want to trigger anyone, because obviously it's so it's such a hard show to kind of explain in a nutshell. But God, I loved it, and Colin obviously is one of the most. I was so lucky to have played him. I mean, Russell wrote that. I mean, I have no words for that script. When I read it, it was like a once in a lifetime moment where I read those scripts, and I didn't put them down until I finished them.
Do you know when that script lands in your lap and you read it, do you know this is a piece of magic here?
Well, I was 21, I was 20? I can't, 20 or 21 when I first read it. I was so young. I hadn't read loads of scripts. I'd obviously read like sort of plays at drama school, but very little telly scripts. So when I read it, I had nothing to compare it to, but all I knew in my bones was like, this is absolutely like this is extraordinary. Like, surely it is. You know, my 20-year-old self going like, oh my God, like, and I think, you know, I as a reader, like, I sort of struggle sometimes to get through scripts, but this one, you know, it always says a lot when I can't put it down. You know, that I think that's such an instinctive thing. And you know, and since very few scripts have done that to me, but you know, that was just mental. Like, you know, the way Russell writes is unlike anyone in the world. Like, he's amazing, and you know what he achieved with It's a Sin. You know, obviously we as a cast get a lot of lovely plaudits, but like Russell, what he did, how he poured his heart into that show is honestly one of the most like extraordinary things anyone's done in writing history. I think, you know, it says so much that how many people responded to it, and it's, you know, it's so lovely that we get to still talk about it, because yeah, it was a show that I feel obviously so proud of.
Now, It's a Sin aired during the COVID pandemic, which really people were at home. They wanted to be entertained. They wanted something to sink their teeth into. But was that strange for you, coming out of a lockdown, coming out of a pandemic? All of a sudden, millions of people know who Callum Scott Howells is.
Oh, it was crazy. You know what, right? So it's been in Cardiff, like, recording this. So the day, so I was living in Wales at the time because I was with my parents. You know, I just graduated from drama school. I was an absolute nobody. I still am, really.
Oh.
But I was in Boot. We just got a dog, and Dewi, my dog's name is, and I was walking him in Boot Park. And he was basically, I was walking him, and he obviously, as dogs do, he was doing a little poo.
As they do.
And some woman, as there he was doing a poo, went, "Oh, Colin." And this was
Perfect
the morning
timing.
after. She'd clearly like binged the whole thing, when, like, in the early hours of the morning, and sort of she saw me and she started crying. It was mad, but that just shows like how visceral the show was for people. Like, I think, if any, you know, it was such a horrible time to air a show which is about to sort of epidemic in the middle of a massive pandemic, but you know, it was also kind of the perfect time because it meant that people were in their houses watching television, and for that show, and the kind of, for everything it achieved, I think was perfect, really.
Now, we have something in common, Callum, and this is going to sound like the stagest thing I've ever said.
Love it.
But we've both worked at the National Theatre in London.
Oh God, look at us. Look at us, lovies.
As you do. No, but you starred in a play by Gary Owen called Romeo and Julie at the Dorfman Theatre.
And I saw your
You came to
production.
watch the corner screen, yes,
And
you
your
did.
beautiful voice soared in that amazing theatre. It was, you know, it was one of the most gorgeous experiences I've had in the theatre, seeing that show. When you all sang, was it Cal and Lan?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Like, to see that song sung on the Littleton stage in the middle of the National Theatre is something quite unique.
But you know what? It was a blast. And to have so much Welsh language at the National Theatre in London too. Everybody in most of the cast are Welsh, so it felt like I was back home in Denby, if I'm honest.
It was such a celebration of Welshness and the Welsh language. It was, and about language in general and what it means to people and communities. It was such a gorgeous show, and you and all those boys were just amazing.
We had a blast. We had a
bet
blast.
you did.
But this play, Romeo and Julie, at the Dorfman by Gary Owen, and it was a co-production, wasn't it, with the Sherman Theatre. Now, we all know the tale of Romeo and Juliet, of course. So how did this differ? What was the story here?
Yeah, so this was a story about Romeo Anthony Jones, and he's in Splot, and he's a single dad, and he essentially he meets a girl called Julie, who has dreams of going to Cambridge, and she loves physics, and for Romeo that's not anything that he could ever dream of. You know, he's a single dad, and he's had to leave school and education. And they fall in love, and obviously because it's based on a Shakespearean tragedy, it doesn't end too well. But it's a beautiful story about love, and about young love, and sort of, you know, it's an examination of the working class as well. And you know, Gary is, again, like we talk about Dav and Russell, Gary is another one who is just, we're so lucky to have these writers in Wales. Like, it's actually, when you think about it, when you deep it, it's the most amazing thing that we're this tiny country, but we have probably the greatest writers in the whole of the UK here on our doorstep. And yeah, like, I was very lucky. I'd been a fan of Gary's texts and his plays for a long time. Like, I loved Killology. I'd seen his production of The Cherry Orchard not a few years before, and yeah, I was very lucky, and it was a dream of mine to kind of be in one of his plays and to originate it. So yeah, got got to do one of his plays on the National Theatre. And yeah, it was it's obviously a dream to be in the National, like doing stuff.
I was going to ask, how did you find it as a place to work?
Oh my God, like, you just dream of it. It's things you can't even fathom, like when you're young, and getting to be on that stage every night. And the Dolphin, I'm biased, but like there's something super kind of cool about that space. It's modern, it's edgy, and it's in the National. It's a very unique space to have, because obviously the Littleton and the Olivier is great, but the Dolphin is kind of it's a cool space to play, and I felt very lucky to do that.
Now, at the Olivier Awards this year, you got to take the stage at the Royal Albert Hall as part of a star-studded ensemble to celebrate 60 years of the National Theatre, which must have been an amazing moment.
It was amazing. Like, when it came through, I was like, oh my God, to be part of a 60-year celebration of the National. I loved it, and I got to sing with like Janie Dee, Tracy Bennett, all these amazing, Joanna Riding, all these amazing people of musical theatre kind of lore. I loved it, and I was sandwiched in the middle of Di Botcher and Tracy Bennett. Like,
that's a nice sandwich.
Could
Callum.
it get more camp? Like, it was so cool. And they obviously drowned me out because their voices are astonishing. So yeah, it was a really, really cool night, and I felt very lucky to be there. It was amazing, and yeah, the Olivier's God, like. They're just such a fun night, and every year, like I urge people to watch them every year, because you get to see musical theatre at its finest.
You held your own, Callum. I was
Thank
watching
you.
and you held your
That's
own.
so kind of you.
Now, you're back in London. We have to talk about the play that you're currently starring in, A View from the Bridge by Arthur Miller at the Theatre Royal Haymarket. So how did you get involved with this project?
Yeah, so a director I've worked with before, Lindsay Posner, he sort of called me and was like, we're doing A View from the Bridge with Dominic West. Dominic's playing Eddie, and I'd love you to play Rodolfo. And all that meant absolutely nothing to me, apart from it being Lindsay and Dominic. Because I didn't even know the play. I never studied it in school. I know a lot of people have studied it for like GCSEs or whatever, but I didn't know it. So when he was like, you're going to play Rodolfo, I was like, fine, all right.
Yeah.
Whatever that means. So I go away and I read the script, and he's this Italian immigrant that comes over to stay with the Carbonis. Eddie Carboni is played by Dominic West. And essentially what happens is Rodolfo, my character, falls in love with Catherine. And Catherine is Eddie's niece, who basically he has this kind of very strange relationship with her. So he gets very angry when I fall in love with her. And it's this kind of Greek tragedy, essentially. And I play this sort of quirky Sicilian guy called Rodolfo, and it's very fun, and I've loved playing him, and I'm loving playing him. And we're in the Theatre Royal Haymarket now until August the 3rd, and we're having a right old good time. But it's a great show, and people have really loved it, and audiences are really great. It's not very cheery towards the end, but it's a lovely. It's actually quite fun in the first act. So you get to kind of experience everything in the play, but yeah, just come on down. If anyone's in London over the summer, any Welshies, please come and see the show, and come to Stage Door after, because I love to always see the Welshies.
Can I ask you about fashion?
Oh, of course.
Oh, Callum, you're so fashion forward,
Oh
and
my
every
God.
picture I see of you, you're wearing the coolest outfit. You make me feel so basic. So, do you enjoy being creative with fashion?
I do. I mean, like, God, I'm lucky enough to like work with a stylist, and Michael Miller, his name is, who will love that I'm mentioning him. He's so brilliant, and we work together on stuff. So whenever I go to something like the Olivier's, or to any sort of red carpet or a premiere that I've got on, or like a press night in the theatre, he always kind of sort of gives me a look that is always kind of. Yeah, I love it, and we're always trying to push and trying to like make things, because fashion's always changing all the time, and I do love it. I love kind of like kind of going out and like wearing something different every time. It's cool, but I love it, and I just I love clothes, and I think it probably comes from like a weird actor thing, because they always inform characters' costumes, and. Yeah, for me, I don't want to get all kind of like sort of weird about it, but I do love it. It's something I'm very lucky to be able to kind of just enjoy, really. But you should not be so hard on yourself, Steph. You always look great.
You know
10
what?
out of 10.
I would
always.
say I would borrow them from you after you finish, but I think we're slightly different heights, Callum.
Maybe.
I don't know that my 6'5" self.
But maybe I could just sort of put some more material on the legs or something.
Maybe the trousers would look like a shorts on me, but we'll make it work. Callum, you're an absolute star. Thank you so much for your company. You have achieved so much, but it's always so lovely to see that you are that Treorchy boy.
Always.
And your feet are always on the ground.
Oh, it's lovely to be here.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations on this show. I hope everyone's enjoying it because Steph's amazing and this show is so cool. And I'm so glad there's finally a musical theatre show on BBC Radio Wales.
I will give you a £10 later. Thank you so much. Catch him if you can. Callum Scott Howells in A View from the Bridge, playing at the Theatre Royal Haymarket until Saturday the 3rd of August. Diolch, Callum.
Diolch yn fawr.